Welcome to the HerStory Circle podcast, the podcast that brings you the extraordinary tales of everyday women who are changing the world. I'm your host, Gertrude Mache, and I'd like to acknowledge traditional custodians of the land on which we meet today. I also like to pay my respects to elders, past, present, and emerging. Every week, we dive into the lives, challenges, and triumphs of women from all four corners of the globe. We're here to inspire, enlighten, and connect, sharing stories that uplift and empower. So grab a cup of coffee, settle in, and join us as we explore the incredible journeys of women shaping our future. This is Her Story, where every woman's voice matters. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Her Story Circle. This is Gertrude Mache here in beautiful Melbourne, Australia. And today I am graced with the presence of yet another fascinating woman. Welcome, welcome, welcome to our tribe. Please tell everybody your full name, where you're based, and share your story with us today.
Hi, Gertrude. Thank you so much for having me on today. My name is Katia. I'm based in Hilo, Hawaii, but I'm originally from California. And back when I was 5 years old in California, my house burned down, and it was a really devastating experience for me when I was so young. And within a month after that, my grandmother died. And I remember still sitting in the car with the windshield wipers going back and forth as my mom cried and cried after telling me. And that was only about 2 years after my grandfather had passed in an earthquake. And from those experiences, the roots that I would have otherwise developed, I think, were cut short. And I felt ungrounded right from the start. And a few years later, my family moved. And then when I was 17 and I went away to college, I went far away. I thought, I've been here my whole life. I have to go somewhere else. And it started a sort of exploration for me, looking for who I really am, what really matters to me, and healing for these traumas that I had been through so early, I think. I don't know that I knew that then, but I do know that now. And I, from there, went on to another college. I didn't even stay for the whole 4 years in one place. I moved from Arkansas and got more courageous and went to a bigger school further away in Delaware. And I graduated right in the middle of the 2008 recession. And business experts weren't getting jobs, let alone brand new graduates. So I found myself back on the couch in California, applying to every job that I could find, including an email that said, teach English in Korea. And a month later, I was there. I wasn't a teacher. I didn't plan to be a teacher. I didn't plan to travel like that. But that kicked off a whole new phase of my life that I would never have seen coming. And I'm so grateful for looking back. After that year in Korea, I went on to teach for almost a decade in Asia, in China, Turkey, Myanmar. And it was so magical to be connected with hundreds of students as they were learning English, and seeing them progress and like getting to know different cultures. But it was also really special for me on a personal level to be in a totally new place and to be able to travel on weekends and long breaks and to explore different parts of the world that I didn't know about before, and also to learn about new healing ways that I didn't know about before, like temple stay in Korea, at a beautiful temple beside this massive lotus pond, trekking in Nepal up the side of the Himalayas. I cried so hard in the rain, but it was all worth it the next morning when the clouds cleared at the base camp and I could see the tops of all the mountains, humming to myself, walking around Paris alone, learning yoga in Bali. learning Kung Fu next to the river where we lived in China. And all of these steps brought new learning and new ideas, new ways of healing even into my life. Things that triggered new, like sparked shifts. And I think all of those little shifts through a lifetime add up to wherever anyone is today. And for me, I had become a teacher so that I could travel. And I met my partner when we were living in Myanmar, and he had also been a traveler. And together we decided our next great adventure would be to try not traveling. So we moved here to Hawaii together. Our original plan was to build a home in the jungle, but we ended up in town here, which probably is a better fit for me in the end. And here on the Big Island, it's a small place. There aren't a whole lot of opportunities, especially for business, aside from making your own business. So I ended up going back into teaching, even though I wasn't traveling anymore. And it became more and more clear and kind of dragged more on who I was and who I was meant to be becoming to keep showing up to school every day. And I thought, oh, maybe it's, this school, maybe if I go to this other school, or, oh, maybe it's from leading my own classroom. Maybe if I focus more and I work with smaller groups of children in special education, maybe if I go to this school and teach special education. But none of it was quite right because it wasn't really who I was called to be. And I started building my Reiki business on the side. I had dabbled in a soap and candle business. I had been learning more about the chakras from my experience traveling, and then moving here. I wrote my book while I was still a teacher. And it was just so hard to live in this kind of like dual world where I was trying to live my soul purpose in all these like little pockets of time before or after school or at lunch, trying to send important emails, and then having so much of my headspace and my energy taken up by schoolwork that is important, but wasn't what I truly wanted to be spending my time on. And in my last year as a teacher, I got a different job that was about 4 minutes from home. And I thought, this is great. I'm not going to have any commute time. I'm going to have so much more time and energy for myself, for my business, for expanding who I am. And it turned out to be the hardest caseload that I had and the most difficult coworkers and most difficult administrators of my teaching career. And it did not turn out to be the magical experience that I thought it would be in the way that I thought that it would. Although in the end, I feel like maybe it was what I needed. Every day felt so hard. And walking into school, I could feel myself just kind of drained. And every day my intuition would say to me, I can't keep coming here. I can't keep coming here. And I would still walk into school and I would still go and do all the work. And then one day it just kind of all added up. There were all these little small things that were so difficult. And then there was one day where it all kind of came to a head. There was a particular conversation that just triggered me really badly. And that day I went home and I wrote an email to the administrator saying, these are all the things that I've been dealing with. And like, I think I'm at a breaking point. I didn't say it exactly in those words, but the next morning when I went to school, it became very clear that I was at a breaking point. I pulled up to park my car and had my heart just beating out of my chest. I felt like I had just walked up 4 flights of stairs and I just parked my car. I couldn't think couldn't think straight, couldn't breathe properly. Everything was a mess. And in that moment, I realized that I was having a panic attack, and I still went into school, still wrote a sub plan for the day. I thought, I know I can't be here, but I still have all of this responsibility. I have things that I have to do. And then I called the vice principal and told her I was having a panic attack and asked if I could talk to her. And she said no. She said she was late for a meeting and asked if we could talk later. I told her I had written sub plans and I was going to leave and go to urgent care. And she said, okay, and hung up. A few minutes later, she called back and said, did you say urgent care? Do you need a ride? And I told her no, but it kind of boggled my mind that she wasn't there to talk through things. And at the hospital later that day, they gave me a week off work. And that next week, I spent kind of weighing my options. Do I go back into this situation and try to make things better? Or do I close that door and try to find my next part of my life?
Wow. You know, it's sad that your story is very common. This is a story that we hear from so many women, put under so much pressure, so much strain. You reach that breaking point. And you did something with this crisis, though, which is quite amazing. What did it take to awaken in you that your conscious mind trying to suppress? What was it?
My intuition had been hinting to me that it was time for me to put this schoolwork aside and really step into my business, into sharing Reiki and doing my chakra energy coaching work and sharing the next layer of healing with others. All of these little practices that I had picked up through my travels and through my experience was something that I wasn't meant to hold, but to share.
Yes, it's quite amazing. And so what gave you the courage to finally leave and embrace your healing path? Fully embrace that.
After that conversation and that week that I had off, I spent the whole week kind of waffling and going back and forth and kept kind of coming to the conclusion that it was time and I had to stop, and it was going to be detrimental to every part of my being if I went back. But I kept telling people and having them kind of say, I don't know. And it was actually my dad, when I told him that I had this experience and was thinking about leaving my job, and he said, good idea. I support you 100%. And that obviously makes me a little emotional just thinking about how much even one person's unconditional support can matter.
That's just beautiful. Now, you describe your work with Reiki and chakra healing as your true passion.
Mm-hmm.
What does that practice mean to you on a soul level?
For me, I feel really deeply connected to the energy that's inside of everything. Like I can feel the kind of almost texture of energy in a way that I think a lot of people can't. And when people come to learn about energy with me or to have their energy healed with me, there's a lot that they don't necessarily realize that they're carrying that I can uncover for them. And then we can look at, okay, so, if you have this gaping hole in your heart or this snake crawling through your guts, what does that mean? Where does that come from? Why is that showing up like that energetically? And then working on how do we resolve that, and how do we change your habits and patterns so that the energy doesn't manifest in this way again that's detrimental to your energetic health.
That's amazing. So how did your intuition guide you through the transition? And how do you now teach others to trust themselves? It's not an easy thing to do.
No, it's not. For me, honestly, in some ways, it's like the counter example of looking at that all those days that I went into school, even though there was that voice saying, I can't keep coming here, I can't keep coming here, to say, wow, I really should have stopped. I really should have listened to that. And it's like, for me, it's been a lot about paying more attention to what that voice is saying, and then what happens when I listen and when I don't, and kind of just opening that awareness of how it goes both ways. Even earlier today, I locked my keys in the car and I knew it was going to happen.
Oh, man. And you start becoming aware of it as you go. It's almost like intuition is like a muscle.
Yes.
At first you don't use it, but the more you use it, the stronger it gets, and the stronger it gets, the more you use it, correct?
Yes, definitely. And I think energetic awareness in general, intuition, and the idea of the blocks and how they're manifesting when you start to say, okay, I don't want to have that. Like, how can I change my energy and shift it? And, if I do this, then how does it feel inside of me? And if I listen to my intuition, how does that feel? If I do the grounding that I know I need to do in this place, or if I say the affirmations that I know I need to build me up at this time, how will that transform this moment for me?
Right. Now, you have a very powerful message for the world. You say that you are already enough. How did you come to believe this about yourself?
Actually, I think it's harder for me to believe about myself than it is for me to see in other people. It took going through the experience of being so kind of broken, having that moment where I felt so unsure about what was going to come. And then, like, from that kind of depths place, like claiming, like, no, I have something that I'm meant to do here. There's something that I'm really truly called to, and it's time for me to step up to that and awaken that part of me instead of pushing it down and aside.
Man. So, what fears or limiting beliefs did you have to shed to fully step into your purpose?
I think the biggest thing is the idea of security, and that having a regular job is safe and secure, and provides certain things that maybe a alternative lifestyle people have an idea that it might not.
Yeah.
But how safe and secure is it if I'm having a panic attack in the parking lot?
Doesn't make sense. It really doesn't. So, what role does embodiment and energy alignment play in helping women to reconnect with their true path?
I think my favorite way of working with the energy and alignment with the true path is to look at the chakras, because there's all of these different energy centers that have slightly different, almost like filters, or like ways of interacting with your world. And so if you can build through each one of them, then you can totally like realign all of your energy and your whole life, like starting with feeling safe and secure, and moving into working with your emotions and flowing with life, and then working on confidence and embracing your inner fire and your personal power, and all the way up through the system.
Wow. So, you've created powerful healing platforms like the Inner Rainbow Healing and Rainbow Reiki Energy. What transformation do you hope to ignite in those who work with you?
I hope for them to also have a sort of rebirth, a reinvention of um, who they know that they're truly meant to be. I think there's so many women that I've worked with, both as clients and met in various schools, and who have replied to my emails, like all kinds of people everywhere that are doing things that they know aren't the thing for them, but they keep showing up and keep doing that thing even though it's not right. And I want more people to feel like they can become the person that they know they want to become, to realize that they're whole, and to realize that they've had that dream for a reason, that they're called to this path.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, we don't trust ourselves enough.
Yeah. And
Where do
sometimes,
we lose
sorry.
that?
Yeah. I think both. Sometimes it's cultural, that there's expectations that our friends and family see that, this certain path is expected, or we've seen, so many people doing this, and like to just go with the flow, and don't rock the boat, and like do all the things in this way. And then also there's the part of the brain that feels like whatever you've been doing is the safe way because you didn't die yet. So,
Yeah.
yeah. But then, like, safe maybe isn't the life that you want to lead. Like,
Yeah.
maybe there's a bigger transformation, something bigger to strive for than safe.
The safe isn't everything.
Yeah.
So, how has living your purpose impacted your relationships, your sense of joy, and your overall well-being?
It's been immense, to say the least. Even that first week after I quit my job, so many people were saying things to me like, wow, you seem so much more relaxed. Wow, you're glowing. Like, just little comments. And I actually like made a little picture where I was writing all those things down, because I thought, I'm going to need proof of this. I need to like remember this when it gets hard later, because, everything has its ebbs and flows.
Mm-hmm.
So, really, I worked hard to take in all of that positive feedback and the positive feelings that I was having within myself with doing the work that I know that I'm meant for, instead of the work that I do because it's the work that I have been doing, if that makes sense, through the school part.
Yeah, we all get stuck sometimes. We get stuck. So, what
Yeah.
advice would you give to women who feel stuck in the shoulds, but are
Mhm.
secretly dreaming of doing something more soulful and aligned?
Short answer, go for it. Longer answer, think about what about that more aligned, more purposeful life you want to live speaks to you. What is it that you truly desire? What do you want to do? But also, how do you have to be in order to embody that work or that contribution to the world, whatever it is that you want to do? Thinking about what attributes of yourself you might need to shift and how that version shows up, and then bringing that version of yourself into who you are now and starting to be that person as much as possible. And also looking at the life that you have now and thinking about what aspects of it truly are disconnected from the way that you want to live. In what ways does it prevent you from being your full self? Are there ways that you can show up as more of yourself? And thinking about the path from where you are now to where you want to be, and thinking about like, what steps can you take to get there? Maybe it's showing up a little bit more confident. Maybe it's showing up and being a little bit more creative, or a little bit more authentic in who you are, even in the job that you have now, sharing a little bit more of your insight or yourself. Looking for baby steps so that you can start to become more of that person, and looking towards the future and how you want to evolve, and coming into a place where if you feel the pull strong enough to take the leap and to trust yourself, even if, like, for me, I had coaches that had said, don't jump too soon. And like, for me, I feel like in the end, I jumped too late. Like I waited until I crashed. I never did get to jump. I had to climb out from the bottom.
Now, you've built a community across social media and podcasts. How important is storytelling in your healing work?
I feel like storytelling is really essential. I feel like when we can see other people doing the things that we want to do, or at least taking steps towards the things that we want to do, or towards being the person that they want to be, it helps us feel like it's all possible and spark the idea that, like, hey, maybe I could do that too. Like, I think we can all see a piece of ourselves in someone else's story.
Yeah, that is so true. Now, to loop back to the very beginning of your journey, you spent nearly a decade teaching across Asia.
Mhm.
How did those experiences influence your views on healing, culture, and connection?
That time of my life, I feel like I was much more free, that I had a lot more like kind of like flow. Um, and there were a lot more times where I could just pause and connect in that moment and just be totally present, and kind of reflecting back on that feeling and trying to pull that into my present self really helps. Like,
And now I want to finish with two questions, which are a bit of a thought experiment.
okay.
Number one, I'm going to teleport you back into the past, and we are going to go and meet the younger you,
Mhm.
a young woman who went on this spiritual quest to find herself. If you could go back and give her three nuggets of wisdom based on what life has taught you up until this point, what would those three nuggets of wisdom be?
Um, I think the first would be trust yourself. I think I spent a lot of time um, kind of second guessing things and wondering if I was doing the right thing. Um, and another thing that I would tell myself, I mean, it's kind of related, but I think I would say keep going, like keep trying, keep doing all the things. Um, like there were moments where I would be, I remember for some reason, specifically a time in Korea where I went to a temple. I took a taxi up to the top of the mountain and um, closed the door, and then watched the taxi drive away, and realized I was at the top of this mountain in the snow at a temple alone, and there was no one around um, to trust that. I mean, obviously, I got back from that experience, like trusting that everything is unfolding as it's supposed to in one way or another, even like from that individual experience to like the entire experience of traveling for a decade. All of it is meant to be in some way, trusting the forces beyond myself. And I think the other thing would be to encourage me to be as authentically myself as possible. I think um, having gotten cut from the roots right at the start left me a little bit unsure sometimes. It left me a little bit shy. And I think to feel safe to be my full true self would be really impactful for me, for the younger me.
I think that's impactful for any woman to be a full expression of who you really are. Last question, we're going to teleport you into the future this time.
Mhm.
And we are going to go and meet the 90-year-old you. She's sitting in her rocking chair, surrounded by her family, her children, her dogs, her cats, whoever's with you at the end. If you could go into the future to meet this wise woman who has led you up until this point, what will you say to her when you finally meet her?
I think thank you would be the biggest thing, um, for taking on whatever challenges got me there, and for um, taking on just experimenting and going with it, and taking the leap even when it felt hard, embracing life and everything that it has to offer, and for um, being brave enough to share my story, to share my work, to share all the things that I feel like I'm getting ready now to start proclaiming to the world.
I absolutely love it. Yeah, that thank you is very necessary because you are very much in tune with her. I love asking women that question because a lot of times we forget that we are born with all of the knowings, everything we need to create the life that we love.
Mhm.
And yet we go outside of ourselves looking for answers, looking for solutions, and the solution is within. So I have a little game that I play and I like to share on the show that I play with the energy of who I am becoming.
Mm.
I've met that woman. I know her. She's had an incredible life. And when I get stuck sometimes, I believe time is an illusion. I can teleport into the past and have conversations with her. And I ask her very simple questions like, so what is the next step? And then I go to sleep on that. And
Mhm.
it's really a magical way to live because your subconscious mind is processing everything for you while you sleep. And then you wake up the next morning, you're in the shower, and you have those light bulb moments where you know exactly what your next step should be. Or you talk to other people about what you're working on, and it's like a jigsaw puzzle. Each person you talk to brings you a piece to the puzzle, and at the end of the week, it all comes together and you've got your solution. So, thank you for tuning into Your Wise Woman and listening to her guidance and thanking her for the ride. It sounds to me you have had an incredible life and there's still a lot more to come.
Thank you.
And thank you to everybody who tuned in today. The Her Story Circle is not just a podcast. We're a social impact movement that brings you the stories and voices of women from all over the world. We share our stories to uplift you, to inspire you, to energize you, but most importantly, to help take you from where you are now to where you're trying to go. So if you are a woman who's feeling stuck, who's on the brink of burnout, like what we've described, here's a coach, someone who can help you. We have Katia's website at the bottom of the screen. How else can people reach out to you?
Also on Instagram, katia.innerrainbow, or also through my Reiki site, Rainbow Reiki Energy. And the same Instagram if you're interested in Reiki specifically, but coaching is my biggest.
Thank you for tuning into the Her Story Circle podcast. I hope today's story has inspired you to believe in the power of our stories and the difference you can make. Wow, I think our time was up.